You know how they say the cobbler's children have no shoes? Well, that's how I feel sometimes. My 330 America has been in storage for the winter. Pretty dusty, sitting in the corner. You see it a lot of times in the back of the shots, but it really hasn't been moved. Last time I took it out was last summer. I took it out, well, I drove it in the fall, but the long trip was I took it out to Mont Tremblant up in Canada for a Ferrari Club national meet. Drove it up there, 800 some odd miles, so it was a good run last year. But I parked it and haven't really used it since then. But on that long trip, I did notice some noise coming from the front suspension, and I wasn't sure what was going on. So when I came back, and I knew that the front was making a little bit of noise. I mean, I haven't looked at it in 20 years. But what I did notice was, I don't know if you can see it in the tires, but the tire on one side was getting really scalloped, and I'll have to clean the tire off and you'll be able to see it, but I just noticed like uneven tire wear. So as I looked closer at the suspension, I started to notice that there was some play on the front suspension. So I wanted to put it up in the air, maybe pull the spring off and just take a look and see what's going on. So I think my 330 America needs a little bit of love. So let's see what happens. All right, let me show you what I found. So I took the shock out, and I also took the spring out. I took the spring out. That comes out from underneath the way, show you what I got here. The spring is held together with this big circlip, and it basically comes out from under. If you look at this side, I'll show you this side's easier. This spring comes out from the bottom with the big C-clip, but you have to compress the spring. The other problem is it doesn't go through the top. So you have to kind of get a special tool to compress the spring. I pulled that spring out. I'll show you later how my spring compressor, I've had to modify a spring compressor. So I've pulled the shock out, pulled the spring out, took the sway bar bushing out, or sway bar link out, and checked everything, and this is what I found. I think you can hear it more than see it. What I have is a pry bar, and there's some play. The front suspension on this car is a kingpin front suspension, so there's a little bit of play, and I think that this is what's causing the tire to scallop, because as it's driving down the road, it's bouncing up and down and not controlled by the shock or the suspension movement. It's just something else in the hub. But I am going to try to see if I could tighten this up and maybe get rid of some of that play. There's a little bit of play up and down. But what I also found was there was side-to-side play on these pivots too. So what happened was these castle nuts were actually working themselves out, because there's a tapered fitting, or it's a tapered shaft. I saw that these nuts were working themselves loose off the taper, so there was actually side-to-side play as well. So that would have affected, I guess, caster. So anyway, I tightened them down. I took the nuts off. There are no holes for cotter pins. So what I did was I took the nuts off and then Loctited them in place and cleaned everything up, put it back together. So that should be better. There's still a little bit of up and down movement but that's just up and down. I'm hoping that that's not what was causing the scalloping. I think what it was the upper control arm, moving, changing caster and camber, and that's what might have been causing the uneven tire wear. So let's see what happens. I mean, one of these days I'm going to go back in there and replace the kingpin. There are bushings in there that that will help that up and down, that can take some of that lash out. But I think I'm going to save that for another day, as opposed to tearing my whole front suspension apart to fix a couple bushings. And we'll just put it back together. That's what happens when you don't have time and you just got too many things to do, and I'd rather be driving. Just to show you how to compress this spring, I have a Mercedes style compressor. What happens is it doesn't exactly work 100%, but I had to modify it because it comes with a bunch of different springs, and this one will sit in there, but the other one, the one that fits on the bottom, does not fit because it's too big. And I'll explain once I show it to you. But what happens is this bottom piece has to be pulled up into the bottom of the cup. So I had to grind one away and just make it so that it would fit like this, so I can get that little C-clip in there. So let me show you here. This one slides into here, like there. Then what happens is I take this, I slide this one into there. This goes up inside, indexes, pulls down, and then I can compress the spring. Can't do this with one hand, but you get the idea. Now I can compress this spring, slide it up inside, and install it. I have to actually put this in first, get this to slide it in once it's in the car. So it takes a little bit of extra steps, but I'll get it set up and you'll be able to see how it goes. Okay, so here's the spring compressor installed. You can see how you have to get that top piece in first, and then you have to key this one in underneath. You slide it up, you slide that piece in there, key it, or basically turn it like a quarter turn, and it catches, and then it'll pull this spring down, and as you tighten this up, it'll bring everything up and you can put the C-clip in. Pretty scary stuff, as always. Anytime a spring is involved, it's a lot of potential energy. Pretty nervous stuff. But I greased up, cleaned up the groove, and made sure everything was nice and clean, no rust and everything, and I'm about to take it out. So let's see what to do. Is it's loose already, and I can take that out, push this up, key it, comes out of the hole, and that's basically the spring compressor. So now I just have to pull that spacer out. It should kind of just slide out. I have to pry it out a little bit. Usually it just needs a little bit of a pry bar to pop it out, but it should be done. So now with everything installed, I don't have as much movement anymore. I don't have that up and down play. I think the spring took up some of the up and down, but at the same time, I don't have that side to side movement that I had before. So I'm gonna put it down on the ground and we're gonna see how it works, see how it drives.